New York Congressman Peter King. He is on the Homeland Security Committee. Congressman King, thank you so much for being with us. Look, generals, admirals, military people, they often follow orders. They often jump at the chance to serve. What does it say to you that Admiral Harward was concerned about the atmosphere inside the White House?
Again, that may or may not be true. He may have felt it was not a right fit for him, and I can understand that. I think and it's not unusual in administrations for people to turn down positions. I think it is important, though, for the president to appoint someone as quickly as possible. General Kellogg, I think, is an outstanding choice. General Petraeus will be an outstanding choice. I'm sure there's some others that are being considered, but it is important to get that position filled.
But if he was concerned about hiring staff, for instance, because some of the reporting is that he wanted to bring in his own team, but the White House was insisting on Fox commentator K.T. McFarland, among others, staying on. Should the new National Security Advisor be allowed to bring in his or her own team?
There's always a certain friction between who comes in and who doesn't, who was the final say. This is not unusual, for administrations. But I think that should be resolved. It should be resolved quickly, and it's up to the president to make sure that it is resolved, and that if there are those type of personnel issues, that they not be allowed to delay the flow of the administration.
And Congressman, obviously you have a unique perspective on this because you sit on the House Homeland Security Committee. You are a New Yorker. You know what this city faced and the threat that can come at any time. What does it mean for this nation and security not to have someone in this post? And frankly, the reporting that Kimberly Dozier mentioned on this program, that Petraeus, she's hearing, may not be too thrilled to be a second pick.
Okay, well, again, it's up to the president to get some, and it is a very key position. I had a great regard for General Flynn. I've known him for a number of years. That is an important position, and again, we have to get it filled. It's as simple as that. And there's a lot of things we have to do. We also have to get the the terror ban order back in place. That's very important too. If we're concerned about the security of our country, we have to have a better screening and vetting process.
And the president says by next week he will put in a new executive order on that. We'll wait to see what that says. Congressman, some of your colleagues on Capitol Hill have been watching the president over the last 24 hours, including the news conference, including some of your Republican colleagues, and seem concerned. I mean, one person told our Tom LoBianco that they thought that the press conference was, quote, the new normal. We're just trying to manage this blank, and then he threw his hands in the air. Is that a sentiment you concur with?
Listen, I appreciate the news conference. Maybe it's because I'm from New York and I'm used to news conferences from Ed Koch and Al D'Amato and Rudy Giuliani. I mean, that's the type of thing, we're used to. Donald Trump and I, we both grew up in Queens. Neither of us quite, I guess, were as polished as we should be. But I think that resonates with the American people. And also, let's put this in perspective. I think that it was important for him to shoot back at the media, to try to get us back on equal footing, to regain some ground that was lost over the last week. And, the media has made themselves part of the show. Donald Trump is going back at them. I don't think the media should take it so personally. But you're in the business. You're in the game.
Look,
and it's a serious business. And so it's fine. So I think it's great.
Congressman, with all
I love
respect,
people taking
John
shots
and
at you guys. I love it.
We have pretty thick skin. It brush it off our shoulder.
Right.
Doesn't bother us. But something did strike me that you just said. You said it's good for him to strike back at the media. The thing is, he doesn't work for him anymore. He works for the American people. How is it good for the American people to spend so much time attacking the media?
Because if he succeeds, the American people succeed, and you can't allow the media to dominate the narrative. Nobody elected the media to anything. You're out there, fine. The First Amendment guarantees your right. You get your seat, you show up. But having said that, he's the president of the United States, and for him to succeed, he's got to get back on top. He's got to show that he's calling the shots, and he's got to move his agenda. He can't be bogged down by every reporter. You guys have your right to take your shots at him. He has the right to reestablish himself, and in the end, the American people will benefit. It's part of the thesis and the antithesis. Go at each other, and it works for the American people. That's democracy.
Let's talk about the substance of the reporting as opposed to the narrative, which is a word that I think we can all agree is overused. Some of the substance of the reporting, particularly on the Russia issue, is that members of the Trump campaign were in frequent contact with Russian officials during the election season. The president was pressed on this a lot at the news conference. Let's listen to what he said.
So you're not aware of any contacts during the course of the election?
How many times do I have to answer this question?
Can you just say
Russia
yes or no
is
on
a
it?
ruse. Yeah, I know you have to get up and ask a question, so important. Russia is a ruse. I have nothing to do with Russia. Haven't made a phone call to Russia in years. Don't speak to people from Russia. Not that I wouldn't. I just have nobody to speak to.
Russia is a ruse, but Congressman King, he never at any point said that no one on my campaign or no one associated with my campaign had contacts with Russia. He never addressed that succinct issue.
Okay,
Is that
let's be-
still an important question
Okay,
to
let's-
answer?
No, to me, so far, this is not a story. Let me tell you why. I'm on the Intelligence Committee, and we are going to fully investigate Russia, and it should be. And if there's any evidence at all, it should be followed to the fullest extent. But take the New York Times story, which is basically a rerun of the story that ran months ago. It talks about 3 possible people who had some connection with Donald Trump who were in touch with Russians. Then, buried in the middle of the story, it says after all this investigation, there's no evidence at all of any collusion, and there's no evidence of any criminal activity. That's where it's at. And that investigation, I know that Jim Comey is pursuing it. He's going to go forward. But as of now, there is nothing. Everyone knew that Paul Manafort had business in that area of the world. I guess they're talking about Roger Stone, who's been a friend of Donald Trump for years. Stone addresses that in his book. Now, again, if there's more there, fine. But as of now, there's nothing. And that's the reality. The fact that Paul Manafort was talking to people in that part of the world, everyone knew that last summer. And he was out of the campaign by the middle of August. And the other one, Carter Page, I don't even know him. And Roger Stone, I've known him for 35 years. Roger is Roger. But again, to think that Roger Stone is going to influence an election, I don't know. But anyway, if there's something there, believe me, I'd take this as a person who's part of the American democratic system. If there's any influence at all by the Russians, that should be examined, explored, and if anyone is involved, they should be charged and be found guilty.
Here's why it matters for a number of reasons, but Russia is an adversary of this country, and
Right.
The relationship with Russia is incredibly important for national security. Let's listen to how the president addressed that yesterday, talking about the words he used, nuclear holocaust. Let's listen.
The greatest thing I could do is shoot that ship that's 30 miles offshore right out of the water. Everyone in this country is going to say, oh, it's so great. We're a very powerful nuclear country, and so are they. I've been briefed, and I can tell you one thing about a briefing that we're allowed to say because anybody that ever read the most basic book can say it. Nuclear holocaust would be like no other.
To quote part of that, the greatest thing I could do is shoot that ship that's 30 miles off the shore right now. What do you make of the tone and the words that he chose to address such a serious issue?
Well, listen, that's the way Donald Trump talks. That's what got him elected. I mean, I have no problem with that. Let me just make it clear. I don't think he's going to get anywhere in his negotiations with Putin. I don't trust Putin. I think he's diabolical. I think he's evil. Having said that, nobody did more to advance Russian interests than Barack Obama. He's the one that personally invited Russia into Syria, back into the Middle East, 40 years after they were thrown out. That's what's caused the refugee crisis. It was President Obama who was caught on an open mic telling Medvedev in 2012, tell Vladimir, once I'm reelected, I can do things. So, and it was Hillary Clinton that presented the reset button. All these presidents and diplomats think they can work with Putin. It all turns out to be wrong. I'm afraid it's going to turn out to be wrong with Donald Trump. But again, he's the president. He's entitled to do what George Bush and Barack Obama both tried to do, even though they were unsuccessful.
Congressman Peter King, have a good weekend. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you, Papa. You too. Thanks, John.
All right,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Coming up for us, you heard it again and again, President Trump going to build a big, beautiful wall. His words on the border